Hello everyone, Megan here. Welcome to my spoiler-free video on 8 Cousins by Louisa May Alcott. I usually get into spoiler territory in my videos, but I found with this one, nope, don't need to do any spoilers. So if you haven't read this, you're welcome here. Come on in. 8 Cousins was a reread for me. I've read it twice now, I think. I've read Rose in Bloom more than that though, because I like it more. So when we go into next month to read Rose in Bloom, which is the sequel to 8 Cousins, I wonder if it will hold up to what I remembered of it. But yeah, so 8 Cousins is our first read in the Louisa May Alcott read-along that was not in the Little Women series this year, except for that nonfiction read we did in November. So I found it enjoyable. I did find that it suffered from a bit of the same issue that Little Men suffered from, which is, here's all these characters, but not really diving deep with those characters. However, I do remember, this is Rose in Bloom with an awful cover. I like this version of 8 Cousins much more, but anyways, Rose in Bloom was similar to Jo's Boys in that you have those same characters and you just dive deeper with them. So 8 Cousins was like Little Men in that respect. Rose in Bloom was like Jo's Boys in that respect. So I hope you stick with us, join us for Rose in Bloom. Even if you didn't read 8 Cousins, you can still join us for Rose in Bloom, which is actually, I remember it being one of my favorite Louisa May Alcott books. One thing I found reading 8 Cousins is that it was very strange to read about a family that was well-to-do that Louisa May Alcott had written, because a lot of her families are a bit poorer, less wealthy. Like the Marches, they come from good stock, a good Concord family, but they are poor, or relatively poor compared to what their status in the town is. Louisa May Alcott's real family, they were much poorer, like they were starving at some points in their lives. So it was very interesting to read about a well-to-do family, because yeah, like the Campbells, they are up there. They are like, you know, they are like high class in where they live. Now, just a note on the whole book is that I did find that there were some old-fashioned ideas, like girls are made to care for boys. That sentence is in the book, girls are made to care for boys. But of course, this book was written in 1875, or it was published in 1875. So you've got to expect some old-fashioned rhetoric. It's just gonna be there. Now, I just want to discuss Phoebe and Rose's friendship a bit, but I guess first, before I get into that, I should just give a brief synopsis. Rose Campbell, she's, what is she, 13 at the beginning of the book. Her father has just passed away, her mother passed away a long time ago, and she is left in the care of her aunts. So that's why the other title for 8 Cousins is The Ant Hill, because number one, they live on a hill, and she's got tons of ants, so it's kind of like a pun, like the ant hill, like there's a bunch of scurrying ants in a hill, and the ant hill, like she has a whole ton of ants who live on a hill, who are her relatives. So yeah, so her father passes away, and she goes to live with some older aunts on this hill, and she's got 7 boy cousins, so that's why it's called 8 Cousins, because there's 8 of them all together, and at the beginning of the book, they decide to let Uncle Alec, her father's brother, care for her for that year, be her guardian, and they're going to see how it goes, how his experiment goes raising her. So that's kind of, there's my alarm for my rice. I'll just finish this sentence and I will get it. What was I saying now? What was I saying? Oh yeah, Phoebe and Rose. So in some ways, I love their relationship. I think they're so cute. I love books with female friendship in them. Like, it's adorable. Phoebe is such a wonderful girl, and Rose is too. On the other hand, it does seem a bit patronizing at times. Phoebe is the servant in the house that Rose is living with her aunts and her uncle. And it's tricky because she says, I want to adopt Phoebe, but really she's kind of making a pet of her in a way. Like, it's coming from a good place in her heart, but she's so clueless because she's been privileged. She's so clueless that she's not really helping Phoebe all that much. However, by the end of the book, that does kind of change, so I do appreciate that. Now I'm gonna go get my rice. Okay, I'm back. I thought I would share this wonderful quote on beauty that Uncle Alec says to Rose. It's a great quote in the context, but if you take it out of context, it's a great quote for all of us. So here, let's see, I'll read it to you here. It says, "If you dear little girls would only learn what real beauty is, and not pinch and starve and bleach yourselves out so, you'd save an immense deal of time and money and pain. A happy soul in a healthy body makes the best sort of beauty for man or woman." And I just thought that was awesome. It's like, yeah, we try to distort ourselves and just change who we are, but who we are is beautiful. So I really like that message in this book. That is a timeless message. You know, it was applicable in 1875, and it is definitely applicable today. Now, one aspect of this book that did not age well, that wasn't appropriate in 1875 and that isn't appropriate now, is that there is some casual racism. And it's funny because Louisa May Alcott, she was known as she was part of an abolitionist family, and they were quite liberal in that way, where they, they were about, they compared to their contemporaries, they were like, not too racist, and yet it's still racist. In this case, there is a character named Fun C, and Louisa May Alcott describes him as a very highly satisfactory Chinaman. And she's talking about him, basically, it sounds like she has this figurine of a Chinese person, and it sounds like, like it was and I can see what she's talking about. I've seen it myself. And she's basically saying, that's exactly what Fun C looked like. In other words, this caricatured figurine that you have of a Chinese person, that's exactly what they look like. And that was not cool. And not only that, but it's like there was a lot of love for Fun C, this Chinese character. They loved him, but it was in a patronizing way. So it was not comfortable to read about. It wasn't a huge part of the book, but there was one chapter in particular about it, and then later on there was a bit more of it in another chapter. But it certainly wasn't the whole book, thank goodness. Another slight complaint I have is that there's one point when Aunt Jessie, one of the many aunts, takes Rose and her cousin Mac and another cousin, the youngest one, what's his name? Can't remember what his name is right now. Jamie. As soon as I say it, then I remember it. So Aunt Jessie takes Mac, Rose, and Jamie on this mountain for a month to basically live and camp, kind of be in the wilderness for their health. And a lot of those adventures and things that happen in that chapter are really fun. They're really enjoyable, but it happens with these characters plus all these other kids who are just in there for the one chapter. And it's like, it would make more sense for her to use that time to develop it with the other cousins, so we can use that chapter to develop their characters, but instead we're with these other kids who we don't even know until this chapter and who we never hear about afterwards. And like Louisa May Alcott says herself, I know it's full of faults. It was written, to be serialized, so that doesn't help either. She's like, I know it has faults, but, so she knew it, but it's also kind of fun to talk about it. Use your critical thinking brain. The thing about Louisa May Alcott is that she has this phrase that she always uses, and it's in the good old-fashioned way. So she'll say, they learned to read and write in the good old-fashioned way. They played as children in the good old-fashioned way. They wore their clothes in the good old-fashioned way. Like, she uses that phrase so much in this book, in the Little Women series, and of course in the book that will be coming up in this read-along, An Old-Fashioned Girl. So I think it's really funny because it's like, we look at this as super old-fashioned, but even then she's like, oh, these modern ways. Like, the good old-fashioned ways are better. And so one particular thing that is funny is they're talking about the aunts are dressing Rose up, trying to find her like a more grown-up dress. And Louisa May Alcott describes it, and it's like, oh, that sounds kind of pretty. But the way Louisa May Alcott is saying is that she's like, it was hideous. And we're like, that would probably be, actually quite beautiful. But she's like, no, these new fashions are hideous, these modern fashions. Of course, I do agree that hobble skirts should never have been a thing, and I hope will never be a thing again. I will never wear a hobble skirt or something like a hobble skirt. Basically, a hobble skirt is, it's so narrow around your legs that you can't really walk properly. You just kind of inch forward. So that was an especially restrictive fashion for a woman, and in fact, suffragettes fought against that particular fashion. And it's funny, because all this anti-corset talk, I'm like, yeah, preach it, Uncle Alec. I've had to wear corsets for when I've been in shows and stuff. It is awful. It is torturous. Like, it's so bad because the reason why they started getting little girls in corsets young is because it would actually shape their ribs. As their ribs were growing, the ribs would be pushed in and they would learn to grow narrow. That's what they did. And then your back wouldn't have any strength, so you wouldn't really be able to just live without a corset because you're used to that corset holding you up and not you yourself holding you up. So and when I wore a corset, I had this right in the middle where your ribs join. I could feel it after a couple days. I could feel it aching, and that's because my ribs were literally getting pushed down like that. It was horrible. So burn the corsets. I am all for burning the corsets. Women need to breathe, to think, and we can't breathe with corsets. So you can tell I'm very passionate about it. So I'm very pleased with Louisa May Alcott for probably being as passionate, if not more passionate, than I am. Yeah, there's this great quote in here. She says, "Nature knows how to mold a woman better than any corset maker." Amen and amen. And that is where I'll end it off. So if you want to join us for Rose and Bloom next month, please do. It's really great. And I guess that's all I have to say for now. So I'm just stalling for time because I feel like I've forgotten something, but I don't think I have. Let me know below what you think of corsets, what you think of Rose if you've read this. I guess that is it for now. So may you all be filled with peace, hope, love, and joy. So take care, everyone. Bye.